and welcome to the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting Grand Prix. I'm your host, Sarah Godfrey. We're in Jakarta, Indonesia for the first round of our sister series, the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix. Let's go.
Achilles Radial have been on board with the Australian Drifting Grand Prix now as the official tyre and corporate sponsor for some 4 years, and they wanted to extend that relationship with us a little bit further, which is where we came up with the Asian Drifting Grand Prix. So Achilles, based here in Jakarta, massive company, massive distribution, and they really wanted to get the Australian Drifting GP to expand and bring what we do right to their hometown.
It's the birthplace of Achilles. Indonesia, Jakarta is where Achilles factory is. I love coming to Asia. The people here are so passionate about drift racing. It's really good to bring, the sport to a very passionate audience. So, we love coming to Asia for that one reason alone.
It's got a long straightaway, fast entry, go close to the walls, and there's some hairpin turns that you gotta, be on an in-clip and out-clip. And there are walls here and there, so you do have to watch out for that. So you can't just go balls out and knock over pylons either.
Very tight. This car is probably well suited. It's only around 550 horsepower as opposed to our usual 900 horsepower. I wouldn't really like to use the 900 horsepower. It'd just be a bit of a handful out there and maybe not as flowing. Whereas this, I can lean on the gas a bit more and keep on throttle.
It's gonna set challenges for everyone, but as far as rolling bends and outer clips, yeah, it's gonna provide some great action.
Okay, let's take a tour of this custom-built track in Jakarta. It is a full throttle run up from the start line. Throw it in big, right on that outer clip on the wall. You then need to run the wall for as long as possible through that Achilles Radial first corner. Then you want to cut back into that inner clipping point as they then head into the first hairpin. It's an outer clip on the wall. Then you need to continue to run that outside line through the rest of the course. This is the Mogu Mogu hairpin now, keeping it wide here. We're on board with Rio SB, one of the best drifters in Indonesia. He now hits that last clipping point on the wall before across the finish line. Now we can take a look at qualifying highlights. In 5th place, it was Indonesia's #1 drifter, Dio, in the Achilles Radial 180SX. He had a few car issues though, but still managed to take 5th. Daigo Saito took 4th in the Achilles Radial JZX 100 over from Japan. In 3rd place, another Achilles Radial driver, and it is Andy Gray, also in a JZX 100. 2nd place went to Rio SB in the GT Radial Nissan Safiro. He was charging hard, super aggressive behind the wheel of that machine, and it paid off for him, taking 2nd place and proving that Indonesia has what it takes to go up against the world's best. But #1 qualifier was Brendan Greaves in the WA Performance S15.
I'm with Brendan Greaves, #1 qualifier here in Jakarta at the Achilles Asian Drifting Grand Prix. Brendan, what was the secret to laying down that killer run today?
Car's been going great today, so went out, first lap, put in a safe one, second one, gave it all it had and worked out well for us.
Well, let's take a look at the rest of the top 10 in qualifying now, scraping in with 10th place. Komuro in the HT JIT Nissan Safiro. Taniguchi from Japan gets 9th. Danny Fedito in 8th place. And then Australians Rob Whyte and Brent Gordon take 7th and 6th place in qualifying here in Jakarta. All right, time to head into some top 32 highlights now. Not quite a full field, so there's a couple of bye runs. Our first pairing between Iksan Utama and Chandra. Utama took the win in this battle of the Safiros. The first upset came when Robbie Nishida, who qualified right down the order due to mechanical problems, defeated Taniguchi in the Kuja Motorsport S14 Silvia. Teammates had to go head-to-head next. Ramadi had the big straighten up on the 180SX and Evan Pratama got the win. Chris Day from Western Australia had a massive crash on the Saturday, causing significant damage. The team got it fixed just in time for qualifying. However, the car wasn't quite straight and a spin gave him a 0. He went out and battled hard against Bullseye. Looks like he had a shot, but a tag of the wall on his chase run put him behind with the judges, and a double wall impact straightened him out, then a spin, and it was all over for Chris Day. Next up, it looks like an R34 versus a Safiro, but it's actually two Safiros head-to-head. Dika was defeated by Muhammad Armando after that spin. Next pairing, another Kuja Motorsport car, this time the R34 front-end Safiro up against Depot in the S14, and Farhan was able to take the win after Depot went off track. Our next pairing, another battle of the Safiros, this time Mimo up against Reggie Flandisa. Reggie was just purely dominant in the GT Radial Nissan Safiro. Our last battle of the top 32, Dilo up against Renga. Renga had a big crash on Saturday as well, but didn't affect him, and he was able to take the win in the top 32.
Stick around as after the break we head into the top 16 tandem battles here at round 1 of the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix.
At Just Car Insurance, we're into imported, high performance and modified cars. So if it's not just a car and you want comprehensive insurance that offers easy pay by the month premiums, call Just Car Insurance on 13 13 26 or buy a new policy online and save $50.
Welcome back to round 1 of the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix. It's time to kick off the top 16 tandem battles.
Here we go, the Newland Oil's top 16 battle tree. Plenty of international battles about to unfold. Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan, Scotland and Australia. Our first pairing though, WA Performance S15 Silvia of Brendan Greaves, our #1 qualifier, up against local driver Iksan in the Nissan Safiro. Greaves, our #1 qualifier, he will lead on this first run, full throttle run up. He throws it in nice and big into the first corner, right up against the wall, holds it there on that outside line, exactly what the judges want to see. Iksan proximity isn't too bad, however he can't quite match the angle of Brendan Greaves through that first corner. Same now as they come through the first hairpin. They switch back into the Mogu Mogu hairpin now, and you can see Iksan more of the same. Not too bad on the proximity, but just cannot match the angle of Brendan Greaves in that WA Performance S15. They'll switch it around now. Iksan will lead in that Yoga Achilles Radial. Safiro, Brendan Greaves will give chase. Iksan's car hasn't got as much power, not as quick on the run-up, so a slower entry. You can see Greaves has to try and slow the car down now. Great proximity for Greaves there. Has a little bit of a correction, straightens the wheels out a little bit there on the chase through turn 1. Nice and close again now. They switch into the first hairpin. Greaves dives in, nearly goes right up on the inside. Has a bit of a loss of drift that has to use the wise fab and the torque of the V8 to get going again. Doesn't completely lose drift, but will be penalised. Pushes nice and hard now on that Mogu Mogu hairpin into the last corner. And a couple of mistakes there from Greaves. Judges saying they want to see it again. Greaves, though, not too worried. He is pumped, and why wouldn't you be, driving a supercharged V8 S15 in an international drift event. So Greaves leads again. He put down another great lead run, and that's why he is the #1 qualifier. But Iksan had car issues right towards the end of the course, and he was left stranded. The team tried to fix it, but unable to do so in time, so the win went straight to Brendan Greaves in the WA Performance S15.
So Brendan, you went through to a rerun against Indonesian driver Iksan. You had some mechanical issues through to top 8.
It's never a great way to win, but I'll take it on this occasion. It was a good rerun, and we'll go on to the next one and go good.
Our next pairing now, another international one, Indonesia versus Japan. Fedito up against Robbie Nishida. It's also GT Radial versus Achilles Radial in this matchup. Robbie Nishida qualified right down the bottom of the order, had car issues yesterday. They fixed the clutch, but he said he's struggling with simply just not having anywhere near enough power to be competitive. You see the difference here. Fedito just takes off from that start line, gets a big gap on Nishida. Nishida's starting to chase him down now as they come into the first hairpin. You can see him closing in as they switch down to the Mogu Mogu hairpin, but he just simply can't match the angle when he's trying to match the speed of Fedito. And a big straighten up there from Nishida as he comes across the finish line. So that is a big advantage now to Fedito as they switch it around. Robbie Nishida will lead in the Achilles Radial Safiro. He gives it everything he's got, throws it in. You can see him clutch kicking and doing everything he can just to hold the drift in that car. But Fedito just dives right in on him. Great chase run from Fedito right on the door of Nishida. And Nishida just saying he just needs another 100 horsepower to get this car to work. Even on this tight track, giving it everything he can, but Fedito is just all over the back of him. He already had the advantage from the first run, and now as they come across the finish line, Fedito will take the win in that GT Radial Nissan 180SX. Looking at the replay now, jump on board with Fedito, and you can see he just purely dominated over Nishida in the chase position.
So Fedito, you had to go up against Formula Drift driver Robbie Nishida. How do you feel going into the top 8?
Yeah, I was very happy because at the first round I'm trying to stay close to the wall and did a great line, and then at the second run I'm just trying to close to his door. So yeah, I just did it.
The next battle was supposed to see Daigo Saito and Evan Pratama. Daigo, though, had big problems on Saturday morning's practice. He put a rod out of the block, a terminal engine failure. As you can see, his weekend was over. He got to meet with the fans for the rest of the event, but no more competing. That meant our next battle was Indonesia's #1 driver, Dio, in the Achilles Radial Nissan 180SX, up against Bullseye from Malaysia in the Achilles Radial Nissan Safiro. Funnily enough, both of these guys in rented cars, so neither of them in their own cars. Dio's car's not ready. But I tell you what, he doesn't seem to mind being in someone else's car, throws it in big. And Bullseye doing everything he can to try and keep up with that monster 6-cylinder 180SX. He had some dramas earlier in the weekend before qualifying, but now the car seems to be on point. Bullseye in a V8 powered Safiro, just trying to keep up now they come through the Mogu Mogu hairpin, and Dio puts down a dominant lead run. Switch it around now, and Bullseye will lead in the Safiro. Dio will give chase in the 180SX. Bullseye's car, you can see, just hasn't got the power, quite a slower entry than what Dio had, but Dio using that to his advantage and is right up on the door of Bullseye. But Bullseye slows right down. Looks like he's about to spin, and then Dio made contact. Let's go to the replay. You can see here, Bullseye just suddenly washed off a lot of speed and didn't give Dio really anywhere to go. How will the judges call it? That is the big question. You can see here, Bullseye just suddenly washes off speed. Dio makes contact, and the judges are giving it to Dio.
I thought it's gonna be my fault because I'm like very close, but as the judge probably see in the video, Bullseye kind of spins out, and then I'm getting really close and then have a body contact. So probably the spin cost Bullseye. So yeah, it's happy to drive a some injury car.
Don't go anywhere, as after the break we continue with the top 16 tandem battles here at round 1 of the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix.
Welcome back to the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting GP held in Jakarta, Indonesia. It is the sister series to the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting Grand Prix, and plenty of action as a whole bunch of international drivers go head-to-head on a custom-built track. Let's take a look at the Newlon Top 16 Battle Tree. The first half of the tree is done and dusted. We are onto the right-hand side of the tree now, and our first matchup, another international affair, Indonesia versus Australia. Armando in the A31 Safiro up against Rookie of the Year last year in Australia, Brent Gordon in the PSA Ski Boats S14. This is his backup car that he's sent over to use, and as the higher qualifier, he will lead on the first run. full throttle run up, throws it in big, great entry from Gordon. Armando cuts it inside line, try and catch up. You can see now he pushes up onto the door of Brent Gordon in the S14. Can't quite match the angle on the line in some parts of the track, but doing much better now towards the end of the course into the Mogu Mogu hairpin. And Armando locked on to the back of Brent Gordon in that part of the track. So not great at the start of the course, but making up for it in the second part. Let's see what happens now when they turn it around. Armando will now lead in the Nissan Zafiro. Brent Gordon will give chase. Full throttle is what the judges want to see. He throws it in. Great entry from Armando. Right out towards the wall. Great line and a great entry. Gordon dives in on him now, but comes in too hot and he spins. But Armando tries to continue the drift. Wow, whose fault was that? That is the question. Let's take a look at the Achilles Radial replay now. You can see Armando just comes in too hot, tags the wall twice. Brent Gordon sees it coming, takes evasive manoeuvres to avoid the collision and gets the win.
The lead run was, I felt like I did a really good line for the lead run. And I could see he was really close, so then chase, I just had to go as hard as I could, and obviously he was pushing hard. Made a bit of contact with the wall and that got us through, so I'm very happy with how it went.
A Scotsman that lives in Japan, Andy Gray. He lives and breathes drifting, working for Power Vehicles at Ebisu Circuit. He's in the Achilles Radial JZX 100. He's up against Farhan in the Kuja Motorsport Nissan Zafiro. Andy Gray leads, throws it in, great entry, runs up against the wall. Farhan, very lazy on that entry, now cuts a very shallow line to try and catch up and dive in on Andy Gray. He's able to get a little bit closer now though, but he's struggling to keep the pace and certainly not following the line of Andy Gray there. And Andy Gray just putting down a dominant lead run in that Achilles Radial JZX 100 through the Mogu Mogu hairpin now. And Farhan throws into that last corner, but over-rotates and spins before the finish line. Wow, what a place to do it. Farhan spins just before the finish. That gives Andy Gray a massive advantage coming into the second battle. Now Farhan leads. Bit slow winding on the angle, very shallow on his line, doesn't go out towards the wall. Andy Gray now dives in, coming into the first hairpin. Switch now, and you can see Andy Gray. He can take it easy, but he'd rather put down a good battle, getting right up on Farhan's door. They switch now into the Mogu Mogu hairpin, and Andy Gray put down a dominant lead run, now putting down a dominant chase run as well. They switch back to come across the finish line, and Andy Gray will take the win. Let's go to the Achilles Radial replay now for another look. Pretty self-explanatory what happened. Andy Gray already had the advantage, but as they came towards the finish line, Farhan spun before the line, and Andy Gray gets the win.
So Andy, mistake from Farhan, which now pushes you through to top 8. How are you feeling?
Yeah, happy. Always to get the first battle out of the way is really important. You've got to get a win. He's a nice young lad. I had full confidence in his driving, so I could get right up on him. So yeah, it went well.
Two-time Australian champion now, Rob Whyte. He's an Achilles driver in their hometown. But he has to represent up against a GT Radial driver now. Reggie Flandisa in the Zafiro. Rob Whyte will lead as the higher qualifier on this first run. Full throttle run up. Rob Whyte throws it in, great entry. Not too bad a line, but Reggie just unable to keep up in that GT Radial Nissan Zafiro, doing everything he can to dive in, but just cannot get there. And Rob Whyte is putting down a dominant lead run. Reggie has gone shallow on the line throughout the entire course, just trying to keep up, but just simply not able to do so. Loses a lot of ground on that Mogu Mogu hairpin, and Rob Whyte sails across the finish line. He will have a big advantage coming into this second run, so Reggie has a lot to do if he wants to turn it around. Take off from the start line, down the straight, and into that first Achilles Radial corner. Reggie tries to throw it in. Bit of a lazy entry, bit shallow on his line there. Rob Whyte comes in on the inside to get up on his door, but Reggie spins, and Rob Whyte makes a little bit of contact coming into that first hairpin. Let's take a look at the Achilles Radial replay now to see what happened. Rob Whyte following that shallow line, and you can see here coming into the hairpin, Reggie spins, and Rob Whyte simply has nowhere to go.
Yeah, we're just feathering around the car, and you know it's unfortunate he made a mistake. I was hoping to have a good chase run. I actually haven't had a battle on this track yet. Even in practice, we sort of just didn't manage to get there. So it was good. It was the first time behind a car, and unfortunately he spun it. So you hate winning that way, but we'll take it.
Our final pairing in the top 16 now, Rio SB, number 2 qualifier in the GT Radial Safiro. He is up against Renga in the Achilles Radial Safiro. They had to go a rerun after some big mistakes from both drivers in their first battle. Rio SB now leads, throws it in, another great entry, just kisses that wall, then runs the outside line. Renga just cannot emulate that line or angle. Dives in the first hairpin, but comes in too aggressive and spins, and that will hand a 10-0 advantage to Rio SB. Renga will lead now. His Safiro copped some serious damage in practice yesterday. They fixed it up pretty well. Not a bad entry, but simply just way too shallow on that first corner. That forces Rio SB to be quite shallow to follow as well. He manages to hold it together. He's got a 10-0 advantage, remember. He dives back in on Renga now through the hairpin. They switch now as they come into the Mogu Mogu hairpin. All Rio SB needs to do is hold it together for the rest of this run. And he is able to do so as they cross the finish line. Let's go to the Achilles Radial replay now. And pretty simple what happened. Renga just dives in and spins and hands Rio the win.
Wow, Rio throwing it down super hard, had to go to a rerun now through to top 8.
I think first run I make some mistake at in my follow run, and after one more time run, I make a smooth run, and then I think goes okay.
That's it, top 16 done. After the break, we continue on to top 8 here at round 1 of the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix.
She's sounding great now.
For less friction, change your engine oil to Newlon.
Just like the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting GP, the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting GP attracted plenty of car enthusiasts and their modified machines, which were on display throughout the weekend. We are into the top 8 now, the Newlon Oils Battle Tree. Some great matchups about to unfold. There is still 3 Australians left in the top 8 to do battle against the Scotsman and the Indonesian locals. Our first pairing, Brendan Greaves, number 1 qualifier in the WA Performance S15 Sylvia, supercharged V8, very similar to his turbo V8 car that he uses in Australia. And he is up against Danny Fedito. Get the call from the starter to go, and they are off. But Fedito, he has decided not to go anywhere. Has he got car issues, or did he think that he got jumped? They took off together. He had no reason to stop, and only the judges can make the decision if someone jumped. So therefore, Brendan Greaves will get a 10-0 advantage for this next run against Danny Fedito. Fedito throws it in nice and fast. The line's not too bad, but Brendan Greaves is right there. He could take it easy with that 10-0 advantage, but he wants to put on a show for the crowd and give us a battle. And that is exactly what he's doing. Dives in on that hairpin right up on his door and giving us a great chase run now as they head into that Mogu Mogu hairpin. Greaves has the massive advantage, and now he is just putting the nail in the coffin to take the win over Fedito.
Brendan, a little bit of confusion on that run. Supposed jump start. The judges have looked and all good.
Yeah, I definitely got the nod from the starter, so it's definitely a track where you got to go all out off the line. Box is killer, car's killer. I'd put down a good run, fun chase, so through to top 4, I'm happy.
Locals going head to head now. Number 1 drifter in Indonesia, Dio in the Achilles Radial 180SX, is up against the Achilles Radial Nissan Safiro of Evan Pratama. Dio will lead as the higher qualifier. Evan gives chase. Dio throws it in big. Evan simply not able to match the angle. He cuts that corner, goes over the white line. That'll be a big deduction. He dives in now to try and catch back up to Dio, who is simply putting on a dominating lead run performance. And Evan is simply just cutting the line to try and keep up, as Dio has superior pace, superior angle, and puts down a dominant lead run to get the advantage. As they come across the finish line and finish the run, they'll switch it around now. And Evan, the Fresh Fruits, Achilles Radial, Nissan Safiro. Dio will give chase. Full throttle run up, throws it in, not as aggressive on his entry and his lead run. His line's a little bit better on his lead run this time, but Dio is right on his door, locked on target. Great proximity from Dio in the 180SX. Has a little bit of a correction there as he tries to back off and then get back up on his door and apply pressure. He has to slow the car down though, as Evan is just not as fast as Dio. Same problem here again. Dio just having to back right off to slow right down, and then a bit of a spin there across the finish line from Evan. Very messy way to finish that run. Let's take a look at the Achilles Radial replay. You can just see Evan really slow here, nearly loses the drift, causes a bit of contact, and then just spins it as he grows across the finish line, and Dio gets the win.
And then there's a little bit of body contact in the last two corners, and trying to keep the drifting on, but yeah, F1 cut us straight away, so I'll just keep drifting to the finish.
Australia versus Scotland now. Brent Gordon in the PSA Ski Boats S14 up against Andy Gray in the Achilles Radial JZX 100. From Power Vehicles Ebisu Circuit in Japan, he will lead as the higher qualifier. Full throttle run up, throws it in. Brent Gordon is right there. Can't quite match the angle to begin with, but now he's locked on, getting right up on the door of Andy Gray. Dives in on the hairpin now, nice and close, putting on a good chase run. Andy Gray keeping it nice and solid on his lead, and that's what the judges want to see. They want the lead car to essentially try and do a perfect qualifying run, and the chase car to do exactly what Brent Gordon is doing right there, and applying pressure and getting up nice and close. Judges saying not much of an advantage going either way there. Brent Gordon's initial part of the first corner wasn't great, but he made up for it on the rest of the track. They switch it around now. Brent Gordon leads, throws it in, a little bit slow winding on the angle. Andy Gray's got more angle on entry and then gets nice and close through the first Achilles Radial corner. But Brent Gordon overcooks it and spins coming into the hairpin. Let's go to the Achilles Radial replay now. And it's pretty obvious, Brent just simply overcooks it and the win goes to Andy Gray.
Andy just up against a super tough competitor from Australia, Brent Gordon. Unfortunate for him, had a spin, fortunate for you, through to top four.
Yeah, I never like to win that way, you know, I always want to battle it out. I stayed with him and just watched him, but I seen he was going to have to rotate, so I bailed out and made sure we didn't have too much of a contact. It was just a little kiss, so yeah, no harm done, and we'll hopefully have another battle again soon.
Our last pairing in the top 8 now, Rob Whyte up against Rio SB. The judges were saying Rio was super aggressive in practice qualifying, but Rob Whyte is on a whole nother level of aggression while he's been chasing in the battles here at this event. And let's see what happens. This should be a good one. Rio SB leads, throws it in, big entry. Rob Whyte can't match it, has a bit of a correction there, but dives in halfway through the first Achilles Radial corner, and now he is locked on target. Super aggressive, right up on the inside of Rio SB. Exactly what the judges want to see. Gives him a little bit of a kiss, has to back off, loses a little bit of drift there on that transition before coming into the Mogu Mogu hairpin, but super aggressive from Rob Whyte, but also a great lead run from Rio SB. The judges don't want to call it either way yet. They said that little mistake or two from Rob Whyte has probably offset the great chase that he did. Rio SB didn't really make any major mistakes. So let's see what happens when they switch it around now. Rio nice and close on that run-up. Rob throws it in. Rio SB was a bit lazy on that entry as well, a bit slow winding on the angle, but now he is locked on, dives in, makes a bit of contact with Rob Whyte coming into that first hairpin. They switch now. Let's see what happens for the rest of the run. Rio SB also super aggressive into the Mogu Mogu hairpin, but he overcooks it. Rio SB spins and loses the drift after that great battle they had. He throws it away right at the end. You can see here Rio SB just putting on a great chase run, just like Rob Whyte did. Super aggressive throughout the entire course. Right up on the door of Rob Whyte as they come through this hairpin now and switch into the Mogu Mogu hairpin, and this is where he loses the drift and hands the win to Rob Whyte.
Rob, that was probably the most intense battle of the day. Rio made a mistake, through to top 4.
Yeah, look, we did a pretty good chase. And then I think he was doing a pretty good chase as well. I could feel him. He gave me a push around the first corner. So to get the win was, yeah, it was exciting. I saw him in the mirror. It's bad for him, but, it's good for us. So top 4, so it's good.
Don't go anywhere, as after the break, we head into the top 4 tandem battles here at the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting GP.
You're watching round 1 of the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix here in Jakarta. It's time to head into the top 4 battles, but before we do, let's catch up with Fernando from Drift School Australia for this episode's Drift Tip.
Hey guys, Fernando Well here from Drift School Australia. Today's drift tip, we're talking about bucket seats. So when you're driving a drift car with no support, like factory seat we're talking, you end up going with the motion really. And basically you use your arms to hold yourself from sliding side to side. And what that does is really stiffen you up, so you're not really getting the motion you need out of the steering wheel. So the reason you end up improving like tenfold when you put a bucket seat in is because it holds you nice and firm in the butt area and across the shoulders. So all you're focusing on is steering the car, where you don't have to hold yourself in. Multiply that with the harnesses in a bucket seat and you're tight. You're sitting in there, you're not going anywhere. So all you've got to focus on is chasing that car in front of you or doing that big 4th gear entry.
Top 4 time now here for the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting GP. Here is the Newlon Oils top 4 battle tree. 2 Australians, a Scotsman and an Indonesian. Sounds like the start of a funny joke, but it's not. It's serious stuff here. The first battle is Brendan Greaves in the WA Performance S15 up against Dio in the Achilles Radial Nissan 180SX. Greaves looking pumped. He's made it this far. It's already his best result to date in ADGP. Starter lets him off the line. Full throttle run up. Both cars got plenty of power. Both drivers got plenty of skill. Greaves throws it in. Great entry. Dio cuts a little bit of a shallow line and shallow angle there through the Achilles Radial first corner. Bit of a wobble as he comes into the hairpin. But Dio, super aggressive, but he's making a couple of little mistakes as he does it. Super close, but sacrificing a bit of line and angle to do so. Right up on the door of Greaves as they come through the Mogu Mogu hairpin. Looks like there might have been a little bit of contact there, but a great lead run from Brendan Greaves and super aggressive from Dio. Let's see what happens when they switch it around now. Dio will lead. 6-cylinder under the hood of that 180SX. Full throttle run up. Greaves can keep up and throws it in. He lacks a little bit of angle on the entry to begin with, but his line is better as he goes out wider towards the wall. Now he dives in on Dio to give us a great chase run. Let's see what happens now through the second hairpin. Get right out to that outer clip. Dio not quite as far out on his lead run with his line compared to what Greaves was in that part of the track, but Greaves is sticking it to him as they come through the Mogu Mogu hairpin. And another great battle from these 2 drivers here in the top 4. Let's take a look at the Achilles Radial replay now. Jump on board with Dio, and you can see here as he comes into the first corner, cuts a very shallow line, shortcuts too much, and the judges penalising him for that. And his angle just can't match Greaves. He's nice and close here, but he was sacrificing a lot of angle to begin with. But you can see Greaves was able to sustain the same angle as Dio, and that is the main thing that got him the win.
Super close battle against a top Indonesian competitor. How are you feeling?
I'm pretty excited about that one. That was definitely the toughest battle of the day, and we both put down some good laps and came through in the end, so I'm excited.
Our next pairing on the other side of the battle tree, Rob Whyte up against Andy Gray. Both Team Achilles drivers. Nissan versus Toyota for this one. Rob Whyte will have to chase. Andy Gray leads as the higher qualifier. Let's see what happens now. Rob Whyte's been super aggressive in his battles. He's lost a little bit of ground on the run-up, but now he dives in. Andy Gray, great line right out towards the wall. Now into that first hairpin. And Rob Whyte, once again, is super aggressive on the chase run, pushing up nice and close on Andy Gray. Follows him out to that outer clipping zone. and he's staying right where he needs to be. A great chase run from Rob Whyte, but Andy Gray, no mistakes on his lead run. The judges saying advantage to Rob Whyte on a great chase run there behind Andy Gray. Switch it around now. Rob Whyte will lead in the Achilles Motul Nissan 350Z. It's his backup car. His 370Z staying in Australia. Andy Gray will now give chase. What can he do? This is also his backup car as well. Full throttle run-up, big entry. Rob Whyte, good angle on that entry. Flicked it in well, goes nice and wide out towards the wall where the judges want him to be. Andy dives into that first pin. Washes off a little bit too much speed though, which enables Rob to get away a bit cleaner coming out of that corner. Let's see what happens now over the second half of the track. Andy Gray applying a lot of pressure, but not quite as close and aggressive as what Rob Whyte was in his chase. Rob Whyte had the advantage after the first run, and he gets right under the wall at the end, and Andy spins it around as he comes across the finish line. Let's go to the replay here, and you can see that Rob Whyte was super aggressive on his chase run. On the switch, pushes back up on the door, also follows his line as well. So not just close, but emulating the line too. So that's exactly what the judges want to see. You can see from this angle, nice and close to Andy Gray.
Rob, that was a super close battle against Andy Gray. Judges said you won it on proximity. How are you feeling?
Yeah, good. I mean, Andy's a great driver. You know, he's an international driver. He does Formula Drift, you know, the second tier Formula Drift. He does D1. He drives Japan every day. So I've always wanted to verse Andy. You know, we've come against each other a few times, but never been able to actually battle each other. So to get a battle and have a win is really good. So.
After the break, we head into the finals to see who takes out round one of the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix.
At Just Car Insurance, we're into imported, high performance and modified cars. So if it's not just a car and you want comprehensive insurance that offers easy pay by the month premiums, call Just Car Insurance on 13 13 26 or buy a new policy online and save $50.
You're watching round one of the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix. It's finals time now. Let's get the action underway.
Finals time now here for the Achilles Radial Asian Drifting GP. We're going to see Brendan Greaves and Rob Whyte go at it for the third event in a row. But this one has a lot more riding on it. But first up, the battle for third place. It is Dio up against Andy Gray, both Team Achilles. Andy Gray in that JZX 100. He will lead on the first run. Dio will give chase in the 180SX. Super close on the run up. Andy Gray, great entry, lots of angle, right out towards the wall. Dio goes a little bit of a shallow line again like he did in the last battle coming through turn one, and then tries to dive on in as we come into these tight hairpins. Definitely cut the line a little bit there, Dio, so he will lose some points for that from the judges. Gathers himself back up now for the Mogu Mogu hairpin. Nice and close, super aggressive on the chase. And now across the finish line. Judges said Dio was nice and close, good proximity, but had to sacrifice line and did cut a little bit too much. So no major advantage going either way. Let's see what happens on the second run now. Dio leads. Super fast, throws it in. Gray has more angle, but Wash does have a bit too much speed, has a bit of a mistake there. Almost a straight now as he came into turn one. Now dives in super hard into that hairpin, comes right up on the inside though, makes contact, loses the drift, and Dio continues on. Wow, Andy Gray looks like he may have had this battle, but that mistake coming into that first hairpin is going to cost him, and now he throws it away again. Straightens out, it is all over, and Dio will take the win in the battle for third place. Let's go to the Achilles Radial replay now. You can see here Dio super aggressive on his chase run, gives Andy a little kiss. And when they switch it around, Andy dived in on that first corner, washed off too much speed and lost the drift while Dio was able to continue. He got the win. All right, finals time now. These guys have gone at it for 3 events in a row now. The last 2 times Rob Whyte took the win and it was further down the battle tree. Judges couldn't split them on their first run though, so they went to a rerun for this final. Brendan Greaves leads on the first run, full throttle run up, throws it in, another great high-speed entry. Rob Whyte, super aggressive, couple of little corrections there, trying to keep up. A little bit messy at the first part of turn one. Now he's locked on though, dives in as they come through that hairpin. Into the horseshoe now to that outer clipping zone, and Rob Whyte, a little bit of contact there, super aggressive. This is what the judges want to see. Dives in that last corner, but makes contact and pushes Brendan Greaves off the track. The judges will be penalising Rob Whyte for that contact as it straightened Greaves out completely to stop the drift. So that's going to be a massive advantage to Brendan Greaves now coming into this second run. Rob Whyte's going to need to try and force a major mistake here. He leads full throttle now down that straightaway. Let's see what happens here. Brendan Greaves nice and close. Big entry from Rob Whyte. Bigger angle from Brendan Greaves though. Pushes right up. Super aggressive on Rob Whyte through the Achilles Radial corner. Into the hairpin now. Let's see what happens. Brendan Greaves using that supercharged V8 to his advantage. Rob Whyte throws it too big though into that hairpin and spins. Wow, Rob Whyte was trying to force a mistake on Greaves, but made his own mistake there, just came in too hot. You can see Greaves here, nice and close on the chase. They come into that inner clipping point. Both drivers hit it well. Rob Whyte just flicks it back in too fast and too wide there and spins it around. And that was the nail in the coffin for Rob Whyte. As you can see here on his chase run, he was super aggressive. After that switch, pushed right up on Greaves' door, gave him a little kiss, but it was coming into the last Mogu Mogu hairpin that that big mistake was made. And Brendan Greaves is the winner. Let's go now to the trophy presentation and make it official. The winner of the very first Achilles Radial Asian Drifting Grand Prix is Brendan Greaves! That means second place goes to Rob Whyte!
Brendan, this is your first ADGP win. How are you feeling?
I'm definitely pretty excited. It's been a long weekend and we've been working hard, so I'm pretty excited.
And you've gone up against Rob Whyte twice before. Now you've finally taken the win. It must feel awesome.
Yeah, I have had a couple of runs against Rob. This one was definitely the one I really wanted to win, so I'm happy with the other two losses. I'll take this win. There's a lot of people I'd like to thank for getting me here. Mitch at WA Performance, like Unlimited Tuning, Scott's Performance Engines, engine lasted killer all day, TTI gearboxes, and Achilles Radials. I was on them for the day and they worked well for us.
Rob, back on the podium, how does it feel?
Yeah, great. You know, it's been a hot day. We've had car troubles yesterday afternoon, and they were starting to come back towards the end of the battles today. So to get a second is just, we're ecstatic. You know, look, Brendan was on point yesterday in practice and qualifying, so you know he was always going to be the one to beat, and sure enough, he was the one that won it. So look, hometown of Indonesia for Achilles. So we're here in the Achilles car representing Achilles, so it was really good to get a good result for them as well.
Dio, you're Indonesia's best driver. How does it feel to have a spot on the podium today?
Yeah, pretty happy with the result today. Especially I compete with very top drivers in Australia, also in Japan. And the event heat, the Eurofia is getting higher. Also the local drivers are really good. So it's pretty happy to be in the home can and be at a podium now.
Well, that's it. The very first Achilles Radial Asian Drifting GP. Let's check out the top 10 now. Bullseye scrapes in there. Daigo Saito took 9th after a good qualifier. Danny Fedito in 8th. Evan Pratama 7th. Brent Gordon goes home with 6th. Rio SB in 5th. And Andy Gray gets 4th. And you know our podium. A massive event, huge support from the crowds for the sport of drifting in Indonesia. But our next event is round 3 of the Just Car Insurance Australian Drifting Grand Prix at Queensland Raceway once again, February 27th. More info and tickets at australiandriftinggp.com.au. See you there.
Oh, I was like, shit, what the top? Sorry.